This is part one of our lesson on polynomials. We're reviewing. We're going to factor and solve equations and graph and a bunch of other things, but this video will focus on factoring. Alright, so number one, we're factoring completely. We're just factoring. There's no equal sign, so we know we're just going to factor and stop. What's the first step of factoring? GCF. Always do that first. What's the GCF of this problem? 4. All right, so we got to bring that 4 outside like that. You know what? Let me leave a little room. So I bring that 4 outside. What's that going to leave on the inside?
X squared minus 100.
X squared minus 100. Can this factor any further?
Yes.
Yeah, easily, right? How does this factor down? Right. X plus 10, x minus 10. Okay, and that's it. So that should have been your answer to number 1. Okay, number 2. Is there a GCF on number 2? No, nothing goes in there. So let's go ahead and do our thing. So 9x squared. It can either be 3x and 3x, but if this doesn't work out, then I'll have to go back and try 9x and 1x, but hopefully this will work out. I'll look at the 4. That's either going to be 2 times 2 or 1 times 4. I'll try the 2 times 2 first. Now it's all about inner plus outer equals middle. Inner, I have 6x. Outer, I have another 6x. That can give me 12, but not 15, so that's not working out. Alright, so right now the 2's are not working for me. So I will try the 1 and 4 option. Now, inner, I have 3x. Outer, I have 12x. I see where the 15 is coming in now. If I just leave both of these positive, I will have positive 15. Plus, positive 1 times positive 4 is positive 4. So this should be the answer to number 2. Okay. Number 3 is a different kind of animal, right? This is a whole pattern that we had to memorize back in the day. Raise your hand if you feel like you remembered this. Yeah, that's about what I thought. The record will reflect 25% of my kids raise their hand. All right, so most of us is gone. You remember?
1, 3, 3, 1.
1, 3, 3, 1. Okay, so for the sum and difference of 2 cubes, this is the sum of 2 cubes because 125 is 5 to the 3rd power. It's a perfect cube. So what we learned was the sum of 2 cubes is always going to factor as a binomial and a trinomial. Okay, the binomial is just going to be the cube root of each of these terms. So what's the cube root of x to the 3rd power?
X plus 5.
It's just x. And then the cube root of 125
Plus 5.
is 5. Okay, because it's 5 to the 3rd power. Okay, so there's our binomial. Now, is this jogging anybody's memory? How do we get the trinomial?
You do x squared and 5 squared.
Right. The first term and the last term we can get right now by squaring these. Okay, so if I square that first one, I get x squared. If I square that last one, I get positive 25.
Opposite in the middle.
What happens? How do I get the opposite? But
You multiply x and 5 and take the opposite.
you multiply the x and 5 and you take the opposite. Okay, so if you multiply these 2 terms in the binomial together, that's how you get the middle. But do you remember this acronym that we used to say? SOAP. Same, opposite, always positive. Because this first sign is always the same as the original problem. The next sign is always opposite. And then the last sign is always positive. So that helps you remember the signs if you remember SOAP. So that's how you do it, guys. So most of us forgot that. So let's bring that back to the front of our brains. I'll try to, maybe I'll put in the warm-up tomorrow to see who can remember it now. Any questions on number 3? All right. Usually during a video, I don't get to ask if there are any questions, so I feel better being able to say, are there any questions, guys? Number 4, I don't see any GCF, so and there's 4 terms, so I'm just stuck. No solution, right? Ah, that's right. We learned this one method of dealing with 4 terms, grouping. So if you see 4 terms, try grouping. That meant look at the first 2 and look at the second 2 as separate packages. Looking at the first 2, there's a GCF of x squared. So if I take out the x squared, you know, I like to color code this part. Okay, if I take out the x squared, what does that leave behind? I got 3x minus 2. What's the GCF on the second pair? Negative 3, no x. It's negative 3. Okay, what is that going to leave behind? Another 3x minus 2. Luckily, it was the same thing twice, because when it is, I can pull that. The parentheses themselves are a common factor that can be pulled out. So I pull out my 3x minus 2 out front. And what does that leave behind? That leaves behind x squared minus 3 from this and this. And that's the final answer. There's nothing in here that can be factored further. So that's it for number 4. Okay, number 5. What's the first thing I'm going to do on number 5? Yeah, this one has a GCF, so please don't try to jump right in doing the binomial trinomial thing. It won't work. So that clearly we have a GCF of 2. So let's pull that out first. So that leaves behind x to the third power minus what?
27.
Minus 27. All right, so I'm going to pause the video because I want you to do this one by yourself first. It didn't really pause. All right, Mr. Scully. Obviously, we have the 2. Tell me what goes next.
X minus 3. And then x squared plus 3x plus 9. Negative 3x. No, because you take the opposite.
Yeah, this is correct. Again, the binomial, as soon as we see that it is the difference of 2 cubes, we know it's going to be a binomial times a trinomial. The binomial comes from just doing the cube root of the terms. And then I take these 2 terms and I square them, and that gives me the first and last term. To get the middle term, I multiply these 2 together. You know, so in my mind, I did negative 3 times x. You know, I multiplied those 2 together. But I had to do the opposite sign, so it became positive 3x. Okay, so that's correct. Number 6, I don't see a GCF, so let's go straight for this. Binomial, binomial. 2x squared, that's got to be 2x and x. That's the only way. 9. 9 is either going to be 3 times 3, or it could be 1 times 9. I'll try the 3 times 3 first. Inner plus outer has to equal the middle. Inner, I have 3x. Outer, I have 6x. I'm trying to get a negative 3 out of it. So if I have a positive 3x and a negative 6x, that will give me a negative 3x. So there's my positive 3x, and putting a negative here will give me the negative 6x. Also gives me negative 9 because a positive times a negative is a negative. So there you go. This is the answer, number 6. Okay, so switching gears, now we're not just factoring, we are solving equations. Shh, video recording, people. We're going to need 0 on one side, so I would add 7x on both sides like this. So that's going to give me x squared plus 7x plus 10 is equal to 0. All right, now I would try to factor it. Okay, x times x. I'm looking at the 10. I'm thinking 2 times 5. And just make them both positive. All right, but this time I'm solving. See the equal sign? So I'm going to take these and set them equal to 0. So x plus 2 equals 0. X plus 5 equals 0. Okay, subtracting 2 from both sides gives me x equals negative 2.
What is it x can't equal?
You mean like the restricted values, excluded values? That's when we had variables in the denominator, okay? Like when we had problems that were like x over x plus 5, you know, plus 2x over x minus 5 equals 1, or whatever. And we were solving equations like these, rational equations. So when you have denominators, then because you can't divide by 0, that was the whole problem. Okay, so x could not be, for example, x could not be negative 5, because negative 5 plus 5 would make 0, and now I'm dividing by 0. But if you don't have any denominators in the first place, you have no problems. Okay, excellent question. Looking at number 8. This one's a little different. See how this one only has one type of x in it. It just has x squared. Like compared to number 7, that had x squared and a regular x. That's when I have to get everything on one side with a 0. I don't have to do that on this problem. If I just have one type of x, I can just get that by itself. I'm not going to get 0 on one side. I'm going to move this 150 away. So that's going to give me x squared is equal to 150. All right, now I'm going to divide both sides by 6. Okay. What did you say? 25. Okay. And then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. All right, see if you can catch my mistake. Who said that? Nice. Yeah, common mistake, especially when it's been a while. I really emphasized it at the time, but it's been a while. Okay, please remember that when you take the square root of both sides as you're solving, the solution will be plus or minus, 2 solutions. So do not leave that off. So 2 solutions, plus or minus 5. All right, on number 9, I see the 2 different kinds of x's. So this is one where I'm going to get 0 on one side and try to factor. Guys, what will I do if I ever run into a problem that does not factor? I will do the quadratic formula. So watch out for that. If it doesn't factor, don't go, oh, no solution. Use the quadratic formula. But I don't think that's happening yet. 6x squared. Maybe it's going to turn out to be 2x and 3x. If this doesn't work out, I'll go back and try 6 and 1. Now I've got the 2. 2 can only be 2 times 1. Do you guys remember the shortcut that I taught you? The shortcut about not doing this. That would make a GCF, right? And that should never happen. If the original problem did not have a GCF, then you shouldn't have a GCF inside the parentheses ever. So I wouldn't waste my time thinking about that. All right, so instead I would only go this way, 1 here and 2 here. Now inner plus outer equals middle. Inner I have 3x. Outer I have 4x. I'm trying to get negative 1. So positive 3x, negative 4x. So that would make positive, negative. And it makes negative 2, because the positive times the negative is a negative. So boom, we factored it. But I don't stop here. This is, see the equal sign? I'm solving. So I got to keep going. I think I'll do it over here though. So I'm going to do 2x plus 1 equals 0. And I'll do 3x minus 2 equals 0. So subtracting 1 from both sides, adding 2 to both sides. So I have 2x equals negative 1, and I have 3x equals 2. So now I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I'll divide both sides by 3. So that'll give me x equals negative 1/2. And x equals 2/3. Okay, so that's it for number 9. Number 10. Alright, so this will be the last problem on this video. I see a GCF of 2, so I'm going to pull that out. So that's going to leave behind x squared minus 13x plus 36. Now, when it's an equation, if you forgot to pull out the GCF, you could still get the answer. It's just tougher to factor, that's all. Okay, so this is going to factor as x and x. 36, let's see, 18, no. All right, 36 is either 6 times 6 or, yeah, 9 and 4. There we go. So we'll do the 9 and 4 option. To get negative 13, because inner plus outer equals middle. Inner I have 4x, outer I have 9x. That makes 13. If they're both negative, that'll make negative 13. And a negative times a negative is a positive 36, so that works out too. So there we factored it properly. Now, I can either ignore this 2, or if it's bothering you, you go ahead and divide both sides of the equation by 2 now. Cancel out those 2's. Okay, so those 2's are gone. So that leaves us with x minus 4 equals 0 and x minus 9 equals 0. So x equals 4 or x equals 9. Alright, so I'm going to stop this video here. We'll pick up the next video with even, odd, or neither functions. I'll see you on the next video.